The Silent Apex. Episode 1, The Nameless Outcast.
The stench of salt water and rotting wood clung to the Raven docks, where waves slapped against crooked piers like an endless dirge. Sailors cursed, merchants haggled, and beggars fought over scraps. Among them moved a boy of 18 with callous hands and the plain garb of a dockhand. He carried crates heavier than most men, never complaining, never boasting. His name was Kael, or at least that's what people called him. He had no family name, no clan, no sect to back him. To the dockmasters, he was useful. To the children, he was invisible. To the thugs, he was an easy mark. And yet, no one ever dared to strike him twice. It wasn't that Kael fought back. In truth, he almost never did. He simply stood there, staring with eyes the color of stormlit steel, and the attacker would feel something crawl up their spine, as though a predator far greater than they could imagine was silently watching. It was a feeling no one could explain. A silence heavier than violence. That was Kael. That evening, the docks buzzed louder than usual. A procession of armored riders thundered down the boardwalk, bearing the fanged sigil of the Silver Fong sect. Their leader, a thin man with a cruel smile, unfurled a scroll and read aloud. By decree of the Silver Fong sect, every district shall present tribute, coin, grain, and one maiden of suitable health. Refusal is death. The crowd shrank back in terror. Everyone knew what happened to the girls taken. Few ever returned, and those who did were broken. When the thugs began dragging people forward, Kael froze. His breath caught when he saw Lyra, the healer's daughter, being pulled by her wrist. She struggled, eyes wide, but her small frame was no match for their grip. Kael's fist tightened. For years, he had swallowed humiliation, choosing silence over violence. But now, for the first time, he felt something stir inside him, like thunder rolling in his veins. The dockhands whispered, "Don't get involved, Kael. You'll be killed. Stay down like always." But Kael stepped forward. His shadow stretched long across the planks, cast by the setting sun. "Let her go." The words were quiet, too quiet, yet the laughter of the Silver Fong, disciples, faltered for a heartbeat. That same chill, the one men felt when Kael simply looked at them, washed over the sect warriors. One sneered, trying to mask his unease. "And if we don't, Doc Rat, what will you do with those empty hands?" Kael glanced down. A rusted blade lay abandoned against a crate, its edge chipped, its handle wrapped in rotting cloth. Slowly, he picked it up, testing its weight. The dock fell utterly silent. Even the gulls seemed to hush. Kael's voice was steady, almost gentle. "I'll ask once more. Let her go." This time, no one laughed.
Episode 2, The First Strike.
The Silver Fong disciple yanked Lyra forward, his grin sharp with cruelty. "Tribute is tribute. Step aside, boy, before you're ground beneath the sect's heel." Kael's grip tightened on the chip blade. It was a worthless thing, dull, corroded, unfit even for chopping firewood. Yet as he raised it, a strange current pulsed beneath the skin. His veins glowed faintly, lightning threading through them like whispers of storm. The disciple lunged. His curved saber hissed through the air, meant to cut Kael down in a single stroke. Kael moved. No one saw his feet shift, nor the arc of his strike. One moment the saber was descending. The next, the rusted blade in Kael's hand split it clean in half. Crack! The saber's upper half clattered to the ground, lifeless. The disciple froze mid-swing, staring in disbelief at the stump of his weapon. And then he collapsed, his chest plate sheared open by a cut, so clean it took several seconds for the blood to follow. The docks erupted into chaos. The crowd gasped, some screaming, others stumbling back. No dockhand, no orphan, no nameless boy should have been able to do that. Kael lowered the broken sword, his face calm. Only his eyes betrayed the storm raging within. That strike had not been skill. It had not been practice. It was instinct, an awakening of something buried deep within him. "Ether blood," whispered an old drunkard in the crowd, his voice trembling. "The blood of the heavens." The remaining Silver Fawn disciples recoiled, exchanging uncertain glances. One of them snarled to mask his fear. "Don't just stand there. Kill him." They charged. Steel flashed, boots thundered, and killing intent filled the air. Kael did not retreat. He stepped forward, each movement smooth, deliberate. His broken blade moved like an extension of his will, deflecting, cutting, striking. Not with the flourish of a master swordsman, but with the terrifying precision of inevitability. One disciple fell, his legs severed. Another's throat open under a casual backhand slash. Kael's silence made it worse. He did not shout, did not roar. He simply fought with the calm of someone swatting aside insects. And in that silence, the disciples realized the truth. This was no dock rat. This was something far, far worse. Within moments, only one remained, their leader. He trembled, pointing at Kael with wide eyes. "Why, you're supposed to be extinct." Kael tilted his head slightly. "Extinct." The man spat, trying to steady himself. The ether bloodline. It was erased from the world centuries ago. None were meant to survive. Kael said nothing. His blade spoke for him. One final stroke, and the silver falling leader's words ended in silence. Lyra stumbled toward him, her face pale but determined.
"Kael, what have you done?"
He looked at the ruined courtyard, the body sprawled across the docks and the broken sword in his hand. His chest heaved, though not from exhaustion. Something within him pulsed wildly, the storm in his blood growing louder. "I don't know," he murmured. But the world now knew. The nameless dock rat was no longer invisible dot. He was a threat.
Episode 3, The Path of Shadows.
The docks smelled of blood long after the silver fong. Disciples fell. Crows circled overhead, shrieking as they descended on the corpses. The townsfolk scattered, whispering Kael's name in fear and awe. Kael stood among the wreckage, the broken blade still in his hand. His chest rose and fell slowly, though his mind was a storm. He had never wanted this. He had never wanted anything. And yet, here he was. "Kael." The voice pulled him back. Lyra stood before him, pale and trembling. She clutched the hem of her robe, knuckles white.
"We can't stay. They'll come for us. Silver Fong won't forgive this."
Kael nodded once. She was right. By saving her, he had marked himself. The sects would not allow him to live, not after they saw the lightning in his veins. As he turned to leave, a shadow moved above the rooftops. Kael's instinct sharpened. He didn't raise his blade. He didn't need to. He simply waited. The shadow dropped soundlessly into the alley ahead of them. A woman emerged, her figure wrapped in black silk embroidered with violet lotus petals. Her face was half-veiled, her eyes glimmering like cold stars. "Impressive," she said softly. Her voice was smooth, dangerous, the kind that slid into the mind like a blade.
"A dock rat who fights like a predator. No wonder the sects whisper of you already."
Kael said nothing. His silence stretched between them, heavy. The woman's lips curved into a faint smile.
"I am Soria, assassin of the Night Lotus clan, and I have been sent to kill you."
Lyra gasped, stepping behind Kael.
"An assassin? Already?"
Soria tilted her head.
"Strange, isn't it, that the world fears you so much, they send me after you before you've even begun."
She drew a thin blade coated with shimmering poison. The very air seemed to warp around its edge.
"I wonder," her eyes narrowed, "are you truly the last of the ether bloodline, or merely a lucky insect that stumbled into power?"
Kael finally spoke, his voice calm, almost indifferent. "If you wish to know, test me." The assassin lunged, silent as moonlight. Her poison blade shot forward, fast, flawless, aimed for his heart. Kael didn't move until the very last instant. His broken sword lifted in a lazy arc, clang, deflecting the strike. Sparks danced in the air. Soria blinked. She hadn't even seen him move. She pressed harder, blades clashing in a deadly rhythm. Her strikes faster, sharper, dripping with venom. Yet Kael's rusted weapon, shattered, useless in any other's hand, moved like a wall she could never breach. And then, As her blade finally grazed the skin, the poison failed. The violet sheen of her toxin sizzled against his flesh and vanished. Soria leapt back, eyes wide.
Impossible. My night lotus venom has slain masters 10 realms above you. And yet...
Kael lowered his blade, his expression unreadable. Try again if you wish. But you already know the result. For the first time, the assassin hesitated. Her mission was clear: kill him. Yet her instinct screamed to her that this boy was not prey, but predator. And worse, he hadn't even tried yet.
Episode 4, The Poison That Failed.
For the poison that failed.
You shouldn't be alive. My venom doesn't fail.
Ael wiped the faint cut on his arm with his thumb. His skin was unbroken now. The strange lightning in his veins had burned the poison away before it spread. He dropped his hand, as if it were nothing. You've tried. Leave. Soria's lips curled, half amusement, half offense.
Leave. I am Night Lotus. I don't fail a mission. I kill until the world believes I cannot be defied.
Her blade flicked, and the alley filled with the scent of crushed lotus petals, a sweet, intoxicating aroma. Lyra gasped, staggering back as her knees weakened. Don't breathe it, Kael said calmly, stepping in front of her. His veins flickered faintly with light. The poison fragrance clung to him, but did not pierce deeper. Soria's eyes narrowed further. This was no ordinary resistance. He wasn't merely surviving her poison. His blood was rejecting it entirely. Intrigue replaced certainty in her gaze. She lowered her blade slightly, circling him like a predator studying prey that suddenly bit back.
You're not what I expected, she admitted. A dock rat who shrugs off poison, who moves like a master but claims no teacher, who fights without killing intent yet leaves corpses in silence.
Kael said nothing. His silence was an answer in itself. Soria tilted her head, then slid her blade back into its sheath.
Very well. I won't kill you yet. My contract demands your death, but my curiosity demands patience.
Lyra's voice shook.
Why would you spare him?
Soria's eyes glinted.
Because killing him now would be boring. I want to see what happens when the world pushes him harder, when he's forced to bare his fangs.
She leaned closer, her voice low and dangerous. And
then, when I finally strike again, I'll know if the Silent One is truly predator or prey.
Before Kael could respond, she melted back into the shadows, vanishing as though she had never been there. Only the faint trace of lotus fragrance remained. Lyra clutched Kael's sleeve, trembling.
She'll come back for you. You know that, right?
Kael's storm-gray eyes lifted to the horizon, where the banners of the Crimson Crown Empire fluttered in the distance. More enemies were coming, louder, prouder, and far more relentless than the assassin. Yes, he said quietly, they all will.
Episode 5, Hunted.
The Raven docks never slept. Ships came and went in the night, smuggling silk, weapons, and secrets. But tonight, the whispers weren't about trade. They were about him. The dock rat killed Silver Fawn disciples. They say poison won't touch him. Bounties already been posted, 50 gold seals for his head. Kael heard it all as he walked through the alleys, Lyra close behind. Faces that once ignored him now watched with suspicion, fear, or greed. He could feel the net closing in. At the edge of the docks, a group of rough men blocked their way. Not sect disciples, mercenaries. Hired blades with no honor, drawn by coin. There he is, one sneered, gripping a cleaver. Looks ordinary enough. Won't matter when we drag his body to the Silver Fawn. Lyra gripped Kael's sleeve.
Kael, there's too many.
Kael didn't answer. He stepped forward. The mercenaries rushed him, shouting, blades flashing in the torchlight. Kael moved like flowing water, silent, precise. A wrist snapped here. A throat crushed there, a cleaver turned aside with effortless grace. Within breaths, 5 men lay broken on the planks, groaning in pain. The rest hesitated. One spat. He's just one man. Kill him. But as they surged again, a flicker of violet cut through the night. A body dropped. Throat slit before Kael even touched it. Another fell with a poisoned dart in his neck. The mercenaries froze, panic overtaking greed. From the shadows, a soft voice drifted.
Pathetic. If you can't even slow him down, you're not worth the coin.
Soria stepped into view, veil fluttering, eyes gleaming. Kael didn't flinch. Still testing me? Her lips curved faintly.
Always.
The mercenaries fled, terrified by the idea of fighting both the Silent One and a Night Lotus assassin. Soon, only Kael, Lyra, and Soria remained. Lyra glared at her.
Why are you following us? If you won't kill him, then leave us alone.
Soria's gaze lingered on Kael.
Because prey should never be allowed to walk freely until the predator is certain of the hunt.
She turned, vanishing once again into the night, her presence more chilling than the mercenaries had ever been. Lyra's voice trembled.
Kael, it's not just her. Everyone's after you now. We need to run.
Kael looked out toward the sea. Dozens of ships bore the crimson sails of the Empire, their banners visible even at night. The docks were no longer a home. They were a trap. We will, he said quietly. But no matter where we run, the hunt has already begun.
Episode 6, The Net Titans.
Morning crept over Raven docks in hues of ash and rust. The sea mist curled around ships like ghosts, and the air buzzed with something heavier than trade. Fear. Kael walked through narrow alleys with Lyra close behind. Her hood was pulled low, but her trembling steps betrayed her nerves.
Eyes are everywhere, she whispered. Every inn, every corner. They're looking for you.
Kael's gaze swept over the streets. He didn't need to answer. He already felt it. People who once ignored him now paused their work when he passed, their whispers rippling like waves. That's him. The Silent One. Were the fortune dead. As they turned a corner, steel rang out. 5 Silver Fang disciples emerged, their robes marked with the Wolf's Fang insignia. Unlike the thugs from the night before, these were trained killers. Their leader sneered, "Doc Rat, you killed our brothers. You'll crawl to Silver Fang Hall in chains or in pieces." Kael didn't move. His broken sword rested loosely in his hand, as if too heavy to bother lifting. But his eyes, storm gray, unreadable, fixed on them, and the disciples hesitated. Lyra's grip tightened on his sleeve.
Kael.
The Silver Fang leader barked, forcing courage into his men. He's one boy with a rusted blade. Cut him down. They rushed forward. Kael shifted once. His blade moved like lightning stitched into steel. Clang, crack, thud. 3 disciples fell instantly, throats slashed before they even registered the motion. The last 2 backed away, terror in their eyes. "Impossible," one stammered. He's not human." The leader roared in frustration and lunged himself. His blade whistled toward Kael's chest, only to be deflected with lazy precision. Kael twisted, and the man crumpled to the ground, clutching a shattered wrist. The fight was over before it began. But instead of relief, Lyra's face went pale. Around them, windows creaked open. Dozens of eyes peered out, and in the silence after the clash, the whispers grew louder. He cut them down like nothing. "He's not a boy. He's a demon. Get the bounty master. Fetch the guards." The docks were no longer a maze Kael could vanish into. The net was tightening. Suddenly, a heavy hand gripped Kael's shoulder. He spun, blade raised, but froze. It was old Harrow, the shipwright who'd sometimes given him scraps of food as a boy. His eyes darted nervously. "Quick, this way." He dragged him down a side alley, through the stench of fish barrels and damp wood. At the end, he shoved open the door of a small warehouse. "Hide here, just until nightfall. I'll send word when it's safe to move." Lyra exhaled in relief.
Thank you, Master Harrow.
But Kael's storm gray eyes lingered on the old man. His grip on his broken sword didn't loosen. Something in Harrow's gaze, too sharp, too calculating, made Kael's instincts burn.
Episode 7, The Betrayal at Dawn.
The warehouse smelled of salt, pitch, and damp wood. Shafts of weak dawn light slipped through broken planks, striping the floor in pale gold. Kael stood motionless by the door, every muscle coiled, while Lyra sank against the barrel, exhaustion pulling at her frame. Old Harrow fussed with a lantern, his smile too forced. "You'll be safe here. No one comes near my stores without permission." Kael said nothing. His silence was heavier than words. Lyra gave him a hopeful glance.
At least for now, we can rest.
But then, Kael's head lifted sharply. His storm-gray eyes flicked toward the ceiling beams. Beneath the gull cries and distant ship bells, he heard it. Footsteps. Too many. Surrounding the warehouse. "Harrow." His voice was low, calm. "How much was the bounty?" The old man froze, the lantern trembling in his hand. "Kael, I had no choice. 50 gold seals, boy. Do you know what that means for a man like me? I could buy back my shipyard, live like I did before the war." Lyra's face went pale.
You sold us out.
The warehouse doors slammed open. Dozens of armed men poured in, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and even a few Silver Fawn disciples nursing old wounds. The ring of steel filled the air, their eyes burning with greed. Harrow stumbled backward, wringing his hands. Just give up, Kael. Don't make this harder." Kael stepped forward. His expression didn't change, but the air around him shifted. The hunters faltered, sensing something unnatural, like a storm about to break. One mercenary laughed nervously to hide his fear. "He's just one boy. Take him." They charged. The world narrowed to silence. Kael moved. His broken blade flashed once, twice. 3 men fell before they realized they'd been cut. A Silver Fawn disciple screamed as Kael's hand crushed his throat, lightning sparking faintly across his skin. Then it happened. A spearhead grazed Kael's ribs. His blood struck the wood floor, but instead of pooling, it glowed faintly silver blue, crackling like liquid lightning. The wound sealed itself in an instant, the glow vanishing as quickly as it appeared. The hunters froze in horror. What is he?" "Blood doesn't do that. He's not human. He's a monster." Kael's storm-gray eyes met theirs. Cold, silent, unyielding. Men dropped their weapons and fled. Others pressed in, desperate for the gold despite the fear. The warehouse became chaos. Steel clashing, men screaming, with splintering under the force of Kael's strikes. Within minutes, silence returned. Only broken bodies and the stink of blood remained. Lyra clutched her cloak, staring at Kael with wide eyes.
Kael, your blood. I saw it. It was.
He wiped his blade on a fallen cloak, cutting her words short. "We move. Now." At the door, Harrow knelt, trembling, hands raised. I didn't know you were like that. Forgive me, please." Kael's gaze lingered on him for one long, unreadable moment. Then he turned away without a word, stepping into the pale dawn. For Kael, there was nothing to forgive. Betrayal was the only law of Raven Docks. But as the wind carried the sound of distant war drums and the sight of crimson sails crowding the horizon, one truth was clear. The docks were no longer his cage. They were his battlefield.
Episode 8, Escape Across the Tides.
The sea was alive with crimson. Dozens of imperial banners whipped in the wind, their colors staining the dawn. Warships moved like predators, hemming in the Raven Docks from every angle. Kael and Lyra slipped through alleys thick with smoke and whispers, their breaths ghosting in the chill air. Behind them, shouts still echoed from the warehouse massacre. The whole dock was awake now. Hunters, sect disciples, common folk, all whispering one name, the Silent One. Lyra tugged his sleeve, pointing.
The West Pier. If we can reach the tidebreakers, we can steal a ship before they notice.
But notice they did. As Kael and Lyra sprinted down the weather planks, Arrows hissed past them, splintering wood. A squad of Imperial soldiers emerged, armored in black steel traced with crimson. Their discipline was unmistakable. Not mercenaries, not sect trash. Empire soldiers. Their captain leveled a spear. By order of the Crimson Crown, surrender the heretic alive. Anyone who resists, kill without mercy. Kael didn't break stride. He met the first soldier head-on, broken blade snapping the man's spear in two before driving through his chest. Lightning flickered faintly across Kael's arm, and the soldier convulsed before crumpling. Lyra ducked behind crates, flinging knives that found throats and eyes. But for every soldier that fell, more closed in. The pier groaned under the clash of steel and the weight of bodies. Then silence fell. A ripple passed through the ranks as they parted, forming a path toward the center of the pier. He arrived, Prince Fenric, clad in scarlet armor polished like blood, his long hair bound with golden clasps. He walked with the unhurried grace of someone who had never known fear, his eyes bright, sharp, and burning with pride, fixed on Kael as if no one else existed. "The Silent One," Fenric said, voice carrying effortlessly over the sea's roar. "I've heard of you. A rat that killed sect disciples. A ghost that slipped through blades. But I see no ghost." He raised his gauntlet hand, and the soldiers froze, awaiting his word. "I see prey, and I will show this city what happens when prey dares to bare its fangs at lions." The sea itself seemed to hush. Even Lyra's breath caught as Fenric drew his weapon, an obsidian glaive etched with runes, humming with restrained power. Kael's grip tightened on his broken sword. His storm-gray eyes betrayed nothing, but inside, the air burned with pressure. This was no mercenary, no sect disciple. This was a predator, and predators did not forgive. With a single gesture, Fenric's glaive pointed at him. "Silent One, kneel!" The pier creaked. Gulls screamed overhead, and in that suspended breath between dawn and bloodshed, Kael stepped forward, not to kneel, but to strike.
Episode 9, Clash of Lions.
The pier swayed beneath them, with groaning under the weight of fate. On one end, the sea foamed against the tide breakers. On the other, soldiers lined the docks, hushed, waiting for blood. Kael and Fenric faced each other in the center, silence binding them tighter than chains. Fenric broke it first, twirling his obsidian glaive so its runes glowed a deep crimson. "Do you feel it, Doc Rat? The eyes of the Empire, the breath of history. This is not a duel. It is a moment you are erased." Kael's storm-gray eyes did not waver. His broken sword gleamed faintly in the dawn light, unworthy against a prince's weapon, yet carried with a grip that spoke of inevitability. Then, like thunder, Fenric struck. The glaive blurred, cutting down with enough force to split the pier in two. Kael slipped sideways, with splintering where he'd stood. Sparks flared as his blade met the glaive shaft, the impact sending a shockwave that staggered soldiers back. Kael countered with a strike, so swift it seemed like lightning. Fenric leaned aside, the tip grazing his armor and leaving a shallow mark. His lips curved. "Good. Better than the rats I usually crush." He spun, the glaive sweeping in a wide arc. Kael ducked, the blade humming inches above his head, then lunged forward. His broken sword drove toward Fenric's chest, only to be stopped by a gauntlet hand. Fenric caught the blade barehanded, blood streaking across his palm, and shoved Kael back with monstrous strength. Kael skidded across the planks, boots grinding. His ribs screamed from the force, but he did not fall. The crowd gasped. Fenric licked the blood from his hand, eyes bright with cruel delight. "Strange, your blood burns." Kael's wound from earlier throbbed, his veins lighting faintly beneath the skin with silver-blue fire. Lightning whispered along the edge of his sword, almost invisible, but Fenric noticed. "You're no rat," Fenric murmured. "You're something rarer, something I will break before anyone else can claim it." He surged forward, glaive thrusting in a deadly line. Kael twisted, blade snapping upward, sparks flying as steel screamed against rune-etched obsidian. Each clash sent vibrations through the pier, soldiers stumbling to keep their footing. Lyra, hidden at the pier's edge, gripped a dagger tight, her breath ragged. She wanted to rush in, to throw herself between them, but the aura radiating from both fighters rooted her in place. This was not a battle she could touch. The duel raged, Fenric's sweeping arcs crashing like waves, Kael's precise counters flashing like lightning strikes. But though Kael's speed was unmatched, Fenric's strength and technique crushed him back step by step. Finally, the glaive smashed against Kael's sword, shattering half the already broken blade. Kael staggered, chest heaving, weapon reduced to jagged steel. Fenric raised his weapon high, voice echoing, "This ends now." He brought the glaive down, but Kael's eyes burned silver blue. His hand clenched a ruined sword, and in that instant, the crackling force in his bloodline erupted. Lightning poured from his veins, sheathing the shattered weapon in raw, searing light. The impact shook the docks like a thunderclap. Soldiers were thrown back, planks split, the sea itself roared. For the first time, Fenric's face shifted, not arrogance, but shock, as his glaive was forced upward by a boy wielding a broken blade wrapped in lightning. Kael stood, hair whipping the storm of his own power, eyes glowed with the fury of something not entirely human. The silent apex had awoken.
Episode 10, The Prince's Fury.
The storm of lightning still danced across Kael's broken blade, his body trembling under the strain. Every breath scorched his lungs, every step felt borrowed, but his eyes, silver blue and unyielding, never left Fenric. For the first time, the prince's sneer faltered. His glaive, runes glowing red-hot, had never been forced back. Yet here he stood, reeling, his armored boots sunk into the pier's splintered boards. The soldiers whispered in terror. The prince staggered. By him? Fenric's lips curved into a snarl. Enough of this. The runes along his glaive blazed, drinking in his fury. Crimson flame rippled along its length, and the air itself bent under the pressure of his aura. The pier groaned, wood warping as Fenric unleashed the crownfire art, the martial seeker of the royal line. He struck. A single sweep of the glaive sent a wave of fire screaming across the pier, consuming crates, soldiers, even the sea spray itself. The dock lit up like dawn had split open. Kael met it head-on, his broken sword, blazing with lightning, cut into the firestorm. Sparks and flame clashed midair, thunder booming loud enough to shake the harbor walls. The force threw both fighters apart. Kael staggered to his knees, vision blurring, but as Fenric charged again, Kael's instincts roared. One step forward, one strike upward. The lightning-wrapped shard of steel cut across Fenric's cheek. The prince froze. A shallow wound, barely an inch, but blood trickled down, red against his perfect face, the face no enemy had ever marked. The soldiers gasped as if the heavens themselves had been split. Fenric touched the blood with his fingertips. When he looked at them again, his eyes blazed with murderous fury. "You dared." He raised his glaive to finish Kael, to erase the shame instantly, but Lyra's voice rang out from the shadows.
Kael.
A flash. Smoke bombs burst across the pier, choking sight and sound. In confusion, Kael's hand gripped Lyra's, and together they vanished into the sea, swallowed by waves and mist. When the smoke cleared, Fenric stood alone, the wound still fresh on his face, his soldiers silent with fear. The prince's voice was low, trembling with restrained wrath. Send word to every sect, every bounty hall, every city under the crimson crown. His glaive ignited again, searing the blood from its blade. Bring me the silent one's head, alive or dead, and the girl with him. He turned, eyes cold as steel. I will carve his name from history with my own hand.
Episode 11. Ashes and Tides.
The sea was merciless. Waves battered the stolen skiff, salt stinging Kael's wounds, lightning still sparking faintly along his veins. His broken sword lay beside him, dim and jagged once more, as if the storm had never come. Lyra rowed with desperate strength, her small frame trembling with each pull. Her eyes flicked to Kael, pale and half-conscious, his breath shallow.
"Don't you dare," she whispered, though no one could hear but the sea. "Don't you dare leave me after this."
Kael's eyes opened, storm gray but dimmed, and for the first time his lips formed words, soft, rasping, almost lost of the wind. Not yet. Lyra froze. It wasn't just the words, it was the weight in them, as if the silence itself had chosen to break. Her throat tightened, but she said nothing, only rode harder into the black horizon. The silent apex lived, but every moment was borrowed. Far away, in the crimson court, firelight filled the grand hall. Golden banners hung heavy above, carved pillars etched with the Empire's victories. Tonight, however, silence hung heavier than glory. Prince Fenric knelt before the throne, head bowed, the cut across his cheek a brand of shame that burned hotter than any wound. On the throne sat Emperor Kael, father to 1,000 victories, his gaze like molten iron. Beside him ministers, sect envoys, and generals whispered like vultures over a carcass. The prince was scarred by a nameless fugitive. Whispers already spread to the capital. The heir's blood has been drawn. If such weakness is tolerated, Fenric's fist tightened. Weakness? No. This is proof that the rat carries a forbidden power. He is no common fugitive. He is a threat to the throne itself. Give me leave, father, and I will bring you his head before the next moon. But the emperor's gaze lingered on the ministers instead. A threat, you say? Then let all sects and all banners of the crown take part in the hunt. Let it be known, the one who brings me this silent one alive will be granted favor beyond measure. A murmur spread like wildfire. Favor from the Crimson Throne was worth more than gold, more than life. Fenric's jaw clenched, rage masked by a bow. As you command. But as he rose, eyes blazing, he swore silently to himself. No sect, no assassin, no courtier will touch him first. That scar he gave me will be the last mark he ever leaves on this world. Back on the open sea, Lyra spotted faint lanterns on the horizon, a fishing village clinging to the coast. She shook Kael's shoulder.
Hold on. We're almost safe.
But in Kael's dimming vision, the world tilted. The salt air grew heavy and deep within his veins. The lightning stirred again, more violently this time, as if something inside him was waking whether he willed it or not. Safe was an illusion.
Episode 12, Whispers Before the Storm.
The fishing village of Duskshore clung to the cliffs like a secret. Lanterns swayed gently on ropes, their light flickering across weathered faces. Kael lay in a straw bed, half-conscious, his body covered with hastily wrapped bandages. The villagers worked in silence, eyes darting nervously toward him. They had taken him in only because of Lyra's desperate pleas, but their whispers carried fear. A boy struck the prince? Madness. If the Crimson Court finds he's here, we'll all burn. Lyra sat at Kael's side, refusing to move. She dabbed his forehead with seawater, her hand trembling as though afraid he might vanish if she looked away. At last, Kael stirred. His storm-gray eyes flicked open, and though weak, his voice rasped a question. Where are we?
Safe.
Lyra lied, forcing a small smile.
Just rest.
But even as she said it, the air seemed to thrum around him. His veins glowed faintly silver blue beneath the skin, the lightning within restless, clawing for release. A village elder, watching from the doorway, muttered to another, "He's touched by something unnatural. The gods hide fire in some men, but fire burns all it touches." Far from Duskshore, the world moved. In the Assassin's Guild of Black Hollow, contracts were inked in blood. A hooded killer whispered, "The price is the Crimson Throne's favor. No man alive can match that." In the Stormfang sect, disciples knelt as their master barked orders. The Silent One is not to be underestimated. Whoever brings his body will elevate our name to the Emperor himself. Even wandering mercenaries, bounty hunters, and forgotten warlords stirred from slumber. The promise of power, of favor, of gold. Kael's name was now a spark igniting greed across the Empire. And above them all, in the crimson-lit palace, Prince Fenric stood alone, touching the scar on his cheek. His rage was cold now, honed into a blade sharper than any glaive. "Run, rat," he whispered. "Let every hound chase you. But when you fall, it will be to my hand alone." Back in the village, Lyra dozed by Kael's side. But Kael's dreams were anything but peaceful. He saw storm-wreathed mountains, a throne of lightning, and a figure cloaked in silver fire who whispered, "Apex is not given. It is claimed." Kael woke with a gasp, sweat cold on his skin. Outside, the waves crashed harder against the cliffs, as though the sea itself warned him peace would not last.
Episode 13, The Hounds of the Crown.
The storm broke at midnight. Dusk shore slept in uneasy silence when the first shadows slipped ashore. Black-clad figures glided over the rocks, their blades curved like crescent moons. Behind them, armored riders bore the banner of the Crimson Crown. The hunters had come. Kael stirred before Lyra, shook him awake. His storm-gray eyes opened, instinct already screaming danger. He pushed himself upright, though every wound burned like fire.
Kael,
Lyra's voice cracked.
they've found us.
Outside, lanterns shattered as soldiers dragged villagers into the square. Women cried, children wailed, and steel pressed against trembling throats. The lead rider's voice thundered. "By order, Prince Fenric, hand over the Silent One and his companion, or this village will be ash before dawn." The elder stepped forward, voice shaking. We know nothing of such a one." A soldier's blade silenced him. Blood darkened the stones. Lyra flinched, but Kael's jaw tightened. His body trembled, not from fear, but from the store within clawing to be unleashed. Another voice rang out. A hooded assassin perched on a rooftop, eyes glinting. "Bring him to me alive, and perhaps the villagers live. Resist, and they die with him." The villagers' eyes turned to Kael's window, faces torn between terror and pleading. They had saved him. Hiding now would damn them all. Kael's hand closed around the hilt of his broken blade. Lightning sparked faintly along the jagged steel, as though eager for blood. He rose to his feet, every breath ragged, but his presence sharpening like a blade drawn from its sheath. Lyra gripped his arm.
Kael, you can't.
His gaze met hers, steady despite the storm in his veins. For the first time, he didn't need words to answer. He stepped out into the night. The soldiers froze. Even the assassin paused. The silent apex stood in the square, bloody but unbroken, silver lightning whispering at his fingertips. And in that instant, everyone knew this would not end as they had planned.
Episode 14, When the Storm Breaks.
The square was silent, too silent. Every soldier, every villager, every assassin's gaze fixed on the broken-bladed boy standing beneath the lantern light. Then the captain sneered to seize him. Steel rang as soldiers surged forward. Kael moved, though it was not movement as men knew it. His body faltered, unsteady from wounds, but his blood roared like a tempest. The broken sword lifted, and lightning leapt from its edge. The first soldier was struck down in a flash of white-blue fire, his armor exploding apart. The second never even screamed. Gasps ripped through the crowd. But Kael's face twisted, not with triumph, but with pain. The storm was not his weapon. It was a beast within him, tearing free. His veins glowed silver, arcs of lightning spiderwebbing across his skin.
Kael,
Lyra cried, reaching for him. He staggered, eyes blazing like storm clouds split by fire. The lightning struck not just his enemies, but the ground, the air, the very huts around him. Thatch ignited. Timber cracked. Villagers screamed and scattered. The assassin on the rooftop froze, a rare tremor breaking his calm. This is no mortal power. The soldiers faltered, fear widening their eyes. The captain barked orders, but none obeyed. For in that moment, Kael was no fugitive. He was a storm given flesh. He raised his blade, and lightning poured out in a torrent that lit the night as bright as dawn. The square became a battlefield of fire and thunder. When at last the storm subsided, silence fell. Charred smoke where soldiers had stood. The assassin was gone, melted into shadow. The villagers cowered at their doors, staring at Kael not as a boy, but as a monster. Kael collapsed to his knees, breath ragged, blood running from his nose. His hand shook violently, the blade dimmed once more. Lyra rushed to him, catching his fall, her voice trembling.
Kael, stop. You'll kill yourself.
He tried to speak, but no words came, only the flicker of lightning in his eyes. And in the dark, unseen, one villager whispered what all were thinking. He is not a boy. He is the storm.
Episode 15, The Way to Fear.
Smoke still curled over Duskshore as dawn broke, the sea wind carrying the scent of char and ash. Kael sat slumped against the wreckage, his body trembling, skin still faintly glowing with veins of silver. Lyra knelt beside him, pressing a damp cloth to his brow, her face etched with worry. But around them, the villagers gathered, not with gratitude, but with fear in their eyes. Mothers clutched children to their skirts. Men gripped farm tools as weapons. The elder, his voice hoarse, spoke the words no one else dared. You brought death upon us. First soldiers, then lightning. Next time, it will be the gods themselves. A murmur rose. Monster, curse, storm spawn. Lyra stood, fire in her voice.
He saved you. Without him, you would all be corpses at Fenric's feet.
But the villagers flinched at her defense, backing away. One man spat on the ground. Saved us? He nearly burned us all alive. Kael forced himself to rise, every muscle screaming. His storm-gray eyes swept over the faces that had once pitied him. Now they only feared. He said nothing. Words had not meant the truth. To them, he was no longer a boy. He was a weapon out of control. Far away, in the Crimson Palace, a different silence hung. Prince Fenric knelt before his father, the Emperor. The hall glittered with banners of blood-red silk, but the weight of disappointment hung heavier than steel. You allowed him to strike you, the Emperor said, his voice low as thunder. And now the realm whispers of a storm-born wretch who humiliated my son. Fenric's jaw tightened. I will end him. You will not, the Emperor snapped. You will unleash the hound of the Empire, the sect, the guild, the hunters, all of them. If this silent apex truly wields a storm, then he is no mere fugitive. He is a threat to the throne itself. A cold smile spread across Fenric's scarred face. Then let every blade in the Empire be turned toward him. I will watch him drown beneath them. Back in Duskshore, Kael turned from the villagers' accusing stares. His heart felt heavier than his wounds. Lyra, his voice was raw. They're right. Wherever I go, ruin follows. Lyra seized his hand, eyes blazing.
Then let ruin fall on those who chase you, not on you.
Above them, gulls shrieked over the sea, as though carrying omens to every corner of the Empire. The hunt had truly begun.
Thank you. I hope you are enjoying the story. Stay tuned for Season 2. Please do well to like, subscribe and share.